I'm sorry, I'm really nervous and I'm really awkward, so please bear with me. Um, my name is Denise Huynh, and I am in North Africa House Church, shepherded by Eric O. and Susan Doe. A couple things I really appreciate about them is their willingness to really go out of their way to help our house church members. They both help me realize no matter where we are in life, everyone goes through battles and that we're all still learning together. A little bit about my background is that I grew up in an agnostic and Buddhist household. My dad did not really practice a religion, but my mom went to the temple mainly because of my grandmother. It wasn't until middle school I got invited to a Christian summer camp, and during praise I felt God's presence. The last day of the camp, the pastor asked if anyone wanted to be baptized, and I felt called to say yes, even though I never really went to church often or asked many questions. When I got home, I told my parents I wanted to get baptized, and my mom immediately reacted, afraid of what my grandmother and what other people would think. My dad started to accept it more and even came to my baptism. After that, I felt like I did believe in Christ, but my faith was very surface level, in a way where I would just serve to serve without knowing the real intentions behind serving. During high school, I went to church every Sunday, but I was always alone and kept my faith to myself. After COVID happened, I started my freshman year of college. I started to throw myself into different organizations, meeting new people and willing to try new things like drinking just so I could fit in. This semester is when everything changed. I usually had really bad digestive issues, but at the end of January, I started regurgitating all of my meals and liquids to the point where I lost 12 pounds. I have been to 2 doctors, the emergency room. Sorry, I didn't think I was going to cry this early, and have done multiple scans, but they still don't know why I'm having these symptoms. I was so beaten down because as humans, we were made to physically survive by eating and drinking. But I felt useless as I wasn't functioning like a normal human being. I got to the point where I was taking one of my strongest medicines, and I had almost every side effect immediately. I was so anxious and restless that I was afraid to be alone because the silence was killing me. This is when I asked James, who is my fellow house church member, how do you pray when you're so anxious? At the moment, I was already breaking down and crying when he called me to make sure I was okay, and that's when I got invited to house church. I also want to make note that I usually never go to James for any of these things, and I never asked a question about my faith before. And the reason why I came to him was because I was admired by his faith and how he was able to be so open about it in his daily life. My first house church, I ended up sharing so much and I broke down immediately in front of so many people I didn't know. But in the end, I was so thankful because nobody judged me for anything I said. After that first house church, James texted me a couple days later asking me to go to college retreat. I wasn't sure about going because I didn't know anybody and I had my nursing exam the week after retreat. I honestly left James on red for 3 hours because I was so afraid about my exam, but inside I was so convicted to go, even with so much going on. During college retreat, while I was praising, I just felt a knot in my heart and I felt really numb to the point where I was holding my breath. It wasn't until the second day that I started throwing up a lot and during one of the sessions, so I had to leave. And I was so physically and mentally exhausted that I broke down. I continued to cry out for help because I couldn't take the pain anymore. That day was when I asked God to open my heart. After hearing so many testimonies at retreat, I asked God to help me surrender and just take my pain into His will. I knew from there on forward that there's be a journey that even though I wouldn't know what was happening, I know that something would happen. At retreat, James also told me that when I first came to house church, the registration was already closed. But Pastor Sang opened it because he felt that there were still some people that needed to be there. I was shocked because without God, none of these events would have happened. They all happened at His own perfect timing, and I'm glad He gave me the strength to say yes. The night we came back, I immediately stopped and prayed out loud and called my friend. When I told her about how I was numb at retreat and how numb I've been feeling for the past few years, she started to break down immediately. And that was the first time I could really feel God's presence, because I knew He was using me to open up her heart. A few weeks after retreat, I realized how much I was pretending to be someone else. At the moment, I felt so lost because I didn't know who I was, and I always used to pride myself so much in knowing who I was. I didn't want to accept that I was a people pleaser and that I tried to be someone who I thought people would like. I pretended to be strong and bubbly because I thought it would be easier than burdening people with my problems. At the same time, I was also struggling to deal with a lot of trust and pain caused by my family and friends that I hid over the years. When I started getting close to my house church, I started having fears and doubts that if I made these connections, then I would be hurt again. But I knew how much they were there for me, so I didn't want to have that type of tension against them. So I was able to open up to them about my fears, and they really accepted me as I was. After that, I was never afraid to be myself in front of them. I knew that to find myself was to develop a personal relationship with God and find my identity in Him. But I didn't know what direction to go. The more vulnerable and open I was, the more afraid I was, because I never knew before that I was allowed to ask questions and allowed to doubt. When I asked God to help me not to give up, He gave me ways and fellowship to continue to battle my fears and my doubts. Something He really allowed me to experience in those lost times is community and fellowship. I didn't know what it really meant to pray for the people you care about until after my first Ayah. This is the first time I really opened up my faith to anybody. And I'm so thankful to Christine, Rebecca, and Cece for listening to me and praying for me. There are so many other people who have been there for me, and I'm so thankful and blessed for the amazing people God has put into my life. Something I really focused on with my journey with God was my intentions and how I wanted to have the right heart when serving Him. When I found out I was going to get baptized again, I wanted to prepare my heart to officially give my life to Him and live the life that He called for me to live. A verse that really stuck with me throughout everything is 1 Peter 5:10. And the God of all grace, who called you to His eternal glory in Christ, after you have suffered a little while, He will Himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast. When I look back at all the battles I have gone through, I see so much light because God has gave me more than what my battles were worth. No matter how heavy my heart was, His peace is greater than all the pain. Even though I have gone so far, I know that my journey is far from over, but now I am sure that I can walk through my sufferings because I trust in the Lord who is always faithful to me. Thank you.